The news today is that brain dead Joe Biden has picked Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate. Kamala Harris, who has views all over the lot, who has no real principles, who even attacked Joe Biden, certainly fills the bill in terms of choosing an African American woman, a woman of Indian descent. It satisfies Biden's requirements. Despite all that's going on right now, and there was a deluge of criticism of Kamala Harris from Sean Hannity and others on Fox News last night and elsewhere, the president has to be very careful, because what really is happening right now is that this election is going to be decided not on the basis of anything other than the way the coronavirus COVID-19 is being handled and the violence in the streets. Now, it just so happens that Kamala Harris, when she was Attorney General from California, was criticized for her prosecutorial abuse, so to speak, by the left. So there's two ways to look at her record. But the president now has to step up to the plate. If he's going to win this election, he has to do what the people have put him in office to do, and that is to enforce the rule of law. And although he was persecuted with witch hunts and everything else, impeachments, the reality is that he has not enforced the rule of law. His attorney general does nothing. We don't have an indictment of Comey or McCabe or the Lovebirds or Bruce Orr or the Obamas or the Clintons or Clappers or Brennan. We don't have anyone out in the streets who is rounding up these terrorists, these domestic terrorists, and putting them in prison where they belong. The president's just simply been talking, and that's not enough. You know, in the last few nights, I've been watching this sitcom. Now, it's not a sitcom, but I guess you could call it that given things that are going on right now, a drama which is on Netflix. And I think it's either called Lone Survivor or whatever. It's about a president who becomes president. He was a cabinet secretary. The president who dies in a bomb explosion of the Capitol, which kills nearly everyone except for two Congress people. He takes over. And of course, it's got a very leftist slant. They believe that it was done by a terrorist organization. And a governor in Michigan starts to round up Muslims up there. And the president, of course, objects with regard to civil liberties. Again, it's a leftist show. And he orders that governor to stop. Well, the governor doesn't. Then he sends the National Guard. He nationalizes the National Guard in Michigan, and the National Guard refuses to enforce the president's order, which, of course, is treason. It's subordination. Same for the governor. So this president, played by Kiefer Sutherland, lures the governor to Washington, D.C., and he arrests him and throws him in prison. Now, isn't it interesting that a leftist show like this show, Lone Survivor or whatever the title is, you can find it, will take that position? The president has the authority to step in with the National Guard, or he can mobilize the police department under his emergency powers and enforce the rule of law, when our so-called conservative president, Trump, says he can't do anything and watches all of this violence, which continues to today, more last night, in Chicago, in Portland, in Seattle, all over the country. In fact, it's so bad that even the leftist police chief in Seattle quit just yesterday. But here you have it, and this tells you the story, is that a leftist show like I'm just talking about, go watch it, gives the president the authority, and he has the authority constitutionally, to take action against what's happening today with regard to domestic terrorists and the streets. And for that reason, this president should take a lesson from that show, because he's going to lose a lot of supporters unless he starts to act. And he's got to stop selling this false narrative about a vaccine as well. He's got to level with the American people. Even Fauci, who is a complete criminal, I mean, we have revealed that, in fact, he sent the seeds of the coronavirus over to the Wuhan lab in China to do research because it couldn't be done in this country legally. Dr. Judy Mikovits has sworn out a sworn statement, an affidavit to that effect, which is what I'm relying upon in making the statement. And she's quite credible. But the president needs to be straight with the American people, because even Fauci says any vaccine's only going to maybe at best be 50% effective, and it's not going to be available that soon. So the president needs to focus on two things. He needs to focus on the coronavirus, which continues on and seems, in terms it's being portrayed by our left-wing media and other media, including Fox, is getting much worse. I think that's overhyped, but that's the perception among the American people. And couple that with the lawlessness in this country that this president will not address. He doesn't want to do anything. He wants to let the Democrats hang themselves in their localities, in the state and local government and in the states. Well, that's not right. Ronald Reagan would not tolerate this for one day if he was president. And therefore, he needs to step up in the plate, because I got to tell you something. Kamala Harris, whatever she is, the dishonest individual she is, the two-faced, whatever you want to call her, she presents a very good image. She's attractive. She's a woman. She's actually married to a white guy who's Jewish, believe it or not, interestingly enough. So she'll probably get some votes in the leftist Jewish community, quite a lot, in addition to the African American. You can't take her for granted. And they're not going to let Biden speak. They're going to let her speak because she is articulate. And unless the president shapes up here, he's going to lose in November. And that's my advice. That's loving advice from someone in my personal capacity that wants him to win. It would be a disaster if Biden won and Kamala Harris won. And we're going to have to take matters into our own peaceful and legal hands. We better do it irregardless of what's going on. But don't take what Hannity tells you at face value, that this woman is not capable of making a very good impression on the American people, because they're only focused basically on one thing, particularly from the left, the coronavirus. And those people that are in power, like the president and people who are up for re-election around the country, they're in jeopardy, because the American people don't vote for a candidate. They vote against a candidate. That happened with regard to Clinton. It happened with regard to Obama, and it even happened for Trump. It was a vote against Obama at the time. So this is my warning today. Don't drink the Kool-Aid that you hear on Hannity. Kamala Harris is a formidable addition to that ticket, no matter how dishonest and despicable she may be, because the American people are not focused on anything now except the coronavirus and what's going on in the streets. And that's my message. And we're doing our best at Judicial Watch, Freudian slip. I do at Freedom Watch today what I used to do at Judicial Watch, to bring law and order to this country with hard-hitting cases, our case against the communist Chinese for coronavirus, our criminal case in The Hague, all of our other hard-hitting cases. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, join our Justice League, and support those cases and see if you qualify to be a class action plaintiff. Share this podcast far and wide. I thank you for listening to me. God bless you, God bless your family, and God save America. I'll be back tomorrow with another special podcast, with another